Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at chapter 5. So in chapter 6. Chapter 5, we started looking at Rome as the Republic. This is a much smaller version of Rome. They're going to conquer Italy. They're going to have conflicts with Carthage. Now in chapter 6, we're going to get to Rome, the Empire, what we kind of think of, the rulers of the Mediterranean, and again, kind of this global, Europe, Asia, Africa empire that we think of when we think of Rome in general. Now, one of the other major things that's going to occur as they change from this republic to an empire is that voting is going to decrease. And we see this under the first major ruler in our book, and that is Augustus. So Augustus comes in, there are still elections happening, but again, the winners are essentially being handpicked. They know who they're going to be ahead of time. The Senate is losing some of that influence. So again, we do start to see a trade-off there, right? As Rome grows as an empire, as they have more prestige, power, control, money, all those different kinds of things, the individual citizens tend to lose out on some of those freedoms or some of those abilities to help control what is happening. The other major thing we see is that Rome continues to grow. The military needs to grow along with it. Again, you obviously have more territory you need to control, but you also have more enemies, right? Every place you go, you're conquering land from someone else. Those someone else's might not necessarily like that. So we see that they tend to keep a standing army of around 28 legions. And again, each legion has about 5,400 troops in it. So again, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of troops. Again, Rome as a republic were citizen soldiers. Hey, Rome is being attacked. Grab your sword, go protect your homeland. That's not the case anymore. Now we have a professional military body. Your job is to simply be a soldier. You're not a farmer who soldiers on the weekends. You are literally just a soldier. So again, one, the army is very professional. They're very good at what they do. But two, now the army has lots of influence. If you're not picking leaders they like, they have all the swords, right? And you don't have those kind of local militias to kind of protect you. So again, the military also grows in strength and helps determine who some of the future leaders of Rome are going to be. We see Rome kind of growing. We mentioned in Europe, we already have conquered kind of the Spanish region. Now we're moving into what we're going to call modern day Germany. They have lots of conflicts with the Gauls, which are the local tribes that live in that area. And again, the more they expand into those areas, the more conflicts they are going to have. Usually they picked the Rhine River as kind of the cutoff. It kind of is the modern day border of Germany. Rome didn't tend to go too much past that line. They kind of spread out their resources and supply lines and things of that nature. But there are a few forays north of the Rhine River, which don't always go so well for the Romans. Social order-wise, what's going on within Rome? We see that Rome has essentially been divided into three classes, right? At the top of that is the Senate, right? This small group of people. And in order to be a senator, you have to have a certain level of wealth. So again, these are completely based on your monetary ability, right? So if you are a senator, again, you're the top 1% of this society. All right, the second level we see are kind of these chief magistrates, or probably chief magistrates within that level. And again, this is kind of this second level of wealth within that society. And then obviously the third level is everyone else. So again, you kind of have that upper 1%, maybe that kind of upper 5%, and then the other, 94% of society makes up the lower class. And again, this was a fairly lower class society, especially if you lived in the city of Rome. You didn't necessarily have a lot of monetary options. You really relied on the government to provide you things. It's also during this time period that we see the phrase, the good emperors. And this is going to last for almost 90 years, where again, for 5 straight emperors, Rome is incredibly successful, militarily speaking, financially speaking. And this is referred to as the Pax Romana, which is basically just Latin for Roman peace. So again, this is when Rome has the least number of problems, right? They're not being, infringed upon by any other major empires. Their empire continues to grow, again, economically. And again, these emperors are able to make the citizens happy, keep the army happy, keep the economy moving forward. And again, we see a map there on page 152 that shows how large the empire of Rome is. Again, we're talking most of Western Europe, North Africa, Asia Minor, the Middle East, Mesopotamia. Again, this is an incredibly large empire that, again, stretches completely around the Mediterranean. Also at this time, we see Rome beginning to kind of expand that trading. And the book mentions something called the Silk Road. Over in Asia at this point in time, again, not necessarily a place that we're looking at right now, but they have something called the Han Dynasty going on. Extremely similar to the Roman Empire as far as size, as far as scope. And again, we do see some trade between these two empires, and that occurs on what we call the Silk Road. So again, supplies and goods from the Mediterranean region are going into Asia. Supplies from Asia are going over into the Mediterranean region. So again, at this point in time, we really see worlds connecting. And again, with this being a world civilization class, that's one of the things we want to key on and focus on. We also see Roman art and culture expanding during this time. One of the major players is a guy named Seneca, kind of involved in politics, involved in poetry. And again, art, though, within the Roman Empire still tends to be incredibly Greek. So again, if you're looking at what the Romans are producing, it looks incredibly similar to what the Greeks were producing hundreds of years earlier. So again, one of the things that made you sophisticated as a Roman was how similar you were to kind of ancient Greece and their art styles and their literature. So again, a lot of overlap between these civilizations that we have been looking at. One of the things that Rome is going to start doing during this time period is the gladiator shows, right? So that's something we can kind of visualize, but we've seen it in TV shows or movies or things of that nature. We see the Colosseum in Rome being built. Again, it holds 50,000 people, and these gladiator shows are incredibly ruthless and bloody. People are putting there to be eaten by wild animals, or at least to get to fight the wild animals. Human sacrifice and human, conflict to the death. So again, this is what Rome is doing for entertainment at this particular time. There's also some natural disasters that occur in Rome. The most famous one is the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which covers the city of Pompeii in just feet and feet and feet of ash. Everyone's instantly killed. And again, these ruins basically sit untouched for another 1,700 years. Finally, in kind of modern times, we're like, that'd be really interesting. I wonder what that looks like, and we kind of dig that out. You can go to the city of Pompeii today and kind of walk the streets basically as they looked thousands of years ago, because being covered in that ash and everything preserved their way of life at that time. A couple other important things we see is that Rome does begin to have some civil wars. After those 5 good emperors, we get a string of not so good emperors. People like Nero and Caligula. The book mentions that Caligula had some kind of personal issues. Yeah, the personal issue was he was sleeping with his sisters, which again is a pretty personal issue and probably doesn't necessarily make you be someone who's in the right frame of mind to be running the country or running the empire. So again, we have this string of bad emperors, and it really leads to civil war, right? When one of them dies, this person might become the emperor, it might be that person, everyone picks a side, the military gets involved, they're helping to determine who these new emperors are going to be. And then we get into religion here in the later part of chapter 6. And talks about the origins of Christianity, how Christianity really starts as almost a sect of Judaism, right? I mean, Jesus was, in fact, a Jewish person. And again, his followers kind of break off and form Christianity. And at first, the Romans don't really care, right? Again, when they conquered an area, they pretty much said, as long as you're paying your taxes, as long as you're not speaking ill of Rome, you can kind of live your life however you want. Worship your gods, have your churches, have your temples, have your whatevers. Again, pay your taxes, don't speak bad of Rome. And so Christianity begins to flourish under these circumstances. But as Christianity grows, it really gets the attention of Rome, and Rome decides this isn't something we're okay with. One of the reasons is the people there aren't doing anything towards the Roman gods, right? So again, Rome is still believing in their gods, harvest gods and military gods and all these different kinds of things, and obviously Christians aren't giving proper respect to those types of gods. So that becomes one of the other issues. The other thing we see is that Christians tend to meet in secret. All right, this makes Rome nervous, right? What are they talking about? What are they planning? Are they plotting something? And it's at this point in time that we see Rome decide to kind of crack down on Christianity. And people are rounded up and they're executed. And obviously the famous example of that would be Jesus being put up on the cross. So again, this is just kind of Rome's response to the spread of Christianity. But as we know, Christianity is, of course, going to continue to grow and spread. So that is our look at chapter 6. Again, this week is a little bit unique. This week, there isn't a specific quiz or a specific set of discussions for the week. This is midterm week. So what you're going to do is take a midterm with 50 multiple choice questions. The first 10 questions will come from this chapter. So the first 10 questions are out of chapter 6. The other 40 questions are out of chapters 1 through 5. I literally just copy and pasted the questions. You've seen them before, so you should do well. The other thing you're doing this week is writing me 2 essays. Each of them are going to be worth 25 points each. And again, you'll have some options on which ones you want to respond to. But again, both of those things are due by Friday. So please make sure you watch the video early in the week and make sure you're getting your responses in by Friday. Thank you.